All right. Next, we've got Ralph Smith, Alpha Bravo 4 Sierra, Romeo Sierra, I'm sorry, AB4RS, and he's going to show us a Western Union self-winding clock. Over to you, sir.
Okay. So, like most of us here, I mean, any of you guys have any rabbit holes that you wind up going down on certain technical things? Timing is one of the rabbit holes that I have. And it's actually served me well, and professionally, it's what I'm doing now. But one of the items here is beginning in about 1890, Western Union would sell time services to people. And so if you had a bank or a jeweler and you wanted to have accurate time, you would rent the service from Western Union and pay them from $15 to $25 a year, depending on the clock. And they would put a clock, much like this one here, in your office. And this clock has a couple of interesting things about the clock. But one of them is that this is a self-winding clock. It's a pendulum clock, but the mainspring in here, and you may have heard it just a few minutes ago. There was this clock made a winding noise much like this. And so every hour it will wind itself, and so it keeps a fairly constant tension on that spring, and so it doesn't speed up or slow down the clock very much with it there. But the other interesting thing about this clock has a mechanism to be able to synchronize the time. And so I'm going to move the time up here near the top of the hour. So when you're within a few minutes of the top of the hour, and there's a solenoid that you see right here, and when that's activated, it will line up. There are cams in there that will line up the hands on that clock, and if the clock had a second hand, it would also line that one up as well. And so the way that Western Union would distribute the time is they had out of their they would had office here at the Naval Observatory, and every day, 3 minutes before noon Eastern time, they would stop traffic on their nationwide lines, and the other offices would link into this line, and they would send a DIT every second, and then 3 seconds before noon it would go silent, and then precisely at noon they would send a DA right there, and so based off of the official naval observatory time. And so then at the offices, the Western Union offices, so what they would do is in that time they would have a master clock, which would be a bigger clock, a little more accurate, longer pendulum, more accurate machinery, and they would have a similar type of synchronization in there, but they would switch that in there, and when that DA came over that national line, that would fire the solenoid to synchronize that clock, and they would do that every day. And then there are contacts in those clocks that they would send throughout the city. They would have a circuit, a line going through there, and every one of these clocks would be linked into that circuit. And at the top of each hour, it would send a current through that circuit, activating the solenoid and resynchronizing, setting the hands of that clock back up. Now, and that's great. And so now, but Western Union, they started that in 1890s, and this clock here was probably built in about the 1920s or 30s here, and they went through there. The clock was actually owned by the self-winding clock company, which had a business arrangement with Western Union. And there was a lawsuit in about somewhere in about 1963, I believe, somewhere in there, where part of the settlement for that lawsuit was that Western Union would then own those clocks here. But it says self-winding clock company on here, and some of them say property of self-winding clock company. And so they would do that. But then in about the late 1960s, the business of selling time kind of went away, and Western Union basically just abandoned the clocks. You could have them, and so the people that had those clocks would keep them. And so I got this off of eBay. This one here was in not very good shape. I was watching eBay trying to get a clock. I really wanted one of these, and there was one that I really wanted, beautiful looking clock. And I bid on it, and then I thought, it's going to get up out of my price range. And then this one here was up, and it was in really bad condition. And so I said, well, you know what? I'll get that one. And well, nobody bid on the other clock, so I wound up getting two clocks. And so the other one was up, and this one here had been probably kept in a basement. There was water damage at the bottom of it. There were paint splotches on it. The clock movement was all corroded in that. So the other clock that I had, and there's another story on that I won't bore you with here, but I essentially got it for free after FedEx messed something up. But that one was up on the wall, and then this was nagging me for like 15 years, and finally about a year and a half ago I said, let's fix this. So we did, and I got it, and I got my ultrasonic cleaner, and we took the movement apart and cleaned it, and I took apart the case and tried to keep it as close as I could to original, but I refinished the case and took care of the dry rot that we had. So I think it looks all right here, and then I put that up. Now the one issue we have then is, how do you synchronize the clock? I'm not going to be able to get a signal from Western Union in here, and at first I have a couple of I won't go down my time rabbit hole, but I have several GPS disciplined oscillators in my house and some NTP servers and that. Anyway, I had some single board computers with the GPIO that I would use to drive the circuit through a switch to be able to drive this clock. And I thought, yeah, but that's wired to it. And so what I did was, if you can see in here, let me pull this apart. So in here we have a Raspberry Pi Pico wireless, and attached to it also is a real-time clock chip, and then there's a lithium-ion rechargeable battery in there. And so that Raspberry Pi Pico will come up. It'll connect to the NTP time servers in my house, get the time, and then using that clock, and so it will wake up and then send that synchronization pulse to this clock. And so every hour, I hear the two clocks in my house make a kerchunk at the same time. It kind of makes me happy hearing that, but it drives those, and so they drive that there. It's been a lot of fun here. One thing here, you'll notice these batteries. It used to be battery. The winding circuit here requires a 3 volt battery, and they would do that by having two of these number 6 dry cells. Well, a lot of times, you got to be careful looking at ones when you buy, because people would see 6 battery, and so they'd think 6 volt battery. They would take 2 of the 6 volt lantern batteries and hook them up in series and put them in there, and so you're applying 12 volts instead of 3 volts to that circuit, and so you'd wind up burning some of your contacts out. But anyway, so that's that. I love those clocks. It's a great thing. It combines a lot of interest there.